I'm just now real time realizing what he did. And you all will see very shortly exactly that too. Yo, that's crazy.
What is missing in social media conversations is any form of dialectic. Nobody knows how to have a conversation.
No, it's just chaos. I agree. I don't think it can be like a rigid blueprint. I think it could be a framework for you to observe and take it like how we're talking about it. It's not an either or.
That dog is hunting because they trained it. There's a reason that this is developing this way, and we're probably in this tension, this thesis, antithesis, synthesis. We're probably in this crisis, reaction, response, or crisis, reaction, solution. And that's the tension of what's happening in our culture, and that's what's shaping public thought.
I don't want to.
Say it, and then when we get there.
Oh, that's cool. All right, so we've laid the groundwork.
What if I told you you were meant for something more? And what if at first sight your birthright was inked in blood? And what if dominion was written in big bold letters? And what if we shouldn't just occupy but overcome? And what if the observation of opposition was us? Antikemi, the podcast.
Welcome to the Antikemi podcast.
Hey.
We are back inside the office yet again. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Schulz.
And we are your host. For this, however long this episode will be, we don't necessarily have a hard stopping point. We're just going to go until we get tired of talking, I guess.
Aren't y'all excited about that?
Man.
We'll try to keep the pace up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I have truly enjoyed this rhythm that we have entered into. Something that I think I look forward to, these conversations.
Yeah, honestly, I hope this podcast lives a long time because I don't want to not do this.
Right.
I really like doing this.
Yeah, we've said before that these are conversations that have happened off camera.
Yep.
For a long time.
Yep.
And it feels good to be able to kind of bring all of you guys into some of the things that we toss around that may not work as well in the midst of a sermon on a Sunday or over a pulpit, but it's truth nonetheless. And there is a definite void of truth being presented in a palpable way, where people are able to digest it kind of at their own pace. You know? We're not locked into the boundary of a service time.
Yep.
You know, they can kind of throw it on and listen to it while they're cleaning the house, driving, doing whatever.
There are limitations to the sermon format and the service flow and all of that, but also just expectations. We've talked about that before.
Right.
But also I think some of the things that wind up coming forward on this podcast, I think the people that are ready for them are going to seek them out. Yeah. And you don't necessarily have that level of, not everybody in the room on Sunday morning is ready to go there.
What's the quote? When the student is ready, the teacher appears.
There it is.
So, like, people kind of ask, like, well, how do I know? You'll know.
You'll know.
You'll know.
And when you start digging, seeking you will find. When you start digging, you actually become ready for things you would not have been ready for before.
Yeah.
The hunger made you dig.
It's funny how hunger works like that.
Yeah.
When you're hungry, when you're like really hungry, you go searching for something.
Yes, sir.
Whether it's a trash can, a backyard, dump, doesn't matter. You're looking for something. You're not sitting back and just, it'll find me, I guess, whenever. You're not really hungry.
It's funny. Just the comment we made a minute ago about digging, or you made a minute ago about digging for stuff when you're hungry, and then you developed the idea a little there. But right when you had first said it, I had flashed to, there's an Irish comedian who does a bit, I can't think of his name right now, but he does a bit about how he says Irish people don't have white guilt. And he actually expanded that bit the second time I heard it, where he said, I should have been more clear with my branding because a bunch of people heard that one-liner, and then the demographic I wasn't looking for showed up at my... It was like I attracted totally the wrong demographic. But the punchline of that's the setup. Irish people don't have white guilt. And then he said, and that's because of this revolutionary concept we had where we planted potatoes and then we dug them up ourselves. And
Yo, that is crazy.
that's crazy. But that triggered a thought in my mind about the guy that developed the russet potato. Have you ever heard that story?
No.
You know, the russet potato, that's the big baking potato that you get at the store. And as you'll notice, compared to other potato varieties, it's not just that. Yeah, that's a solid potato right there.
Potato.
That's a potato. It's the gold standard for potatoes, and it's not just the the size and the uniformity and the creaminess of the flesh, and all that's true. That very starchy consistency that makes it so good for a lot of applications and all that. Also, the leathery skin that's a genetic anomaly.
Wow.
Because if you look at any other potato variety, they don't have that. They have thin, almost papery, membrane-like skins that are not as hardy and durable and are much more prone to mold. But all of that started as a result of the potato famine, because the blight that was wrecking all of the known varieties of potato at the time was a product of the fact that, I don't know if you ever planted potatoes. Have you ever planted potatoes?
Not on purpose.
Yeah, that's true. It is easy to accidentally plant them. You just have to have a compost pile.
Right.
But, most of the time, I've planted a lot of potatoes in my life, and most of the time, you get a potato that's popping out a bunch of eyes, the little sprouts, and you cut the potato up, and you usually have 2 or 3 of those eyes on each little piece, and you cut the potato up, and you can get multiple, because either at least 1 or 2 of those little eyes will turn into a really good plant.
Right.
So you wind up getting 1 or 2 really solid potato plants from each piece. The problem is that's awesome. They propagate very easily, and most potatoes are grown by propagation like that. The challenge is that basically you're growing the same potato, not basically, quite literally, you're growing the same potato over and over again. I don't know if cloning is the appropriate word, but if it's not, that's very close.
Very close to cloning, yes.
Yeah. You're quite literally growing the same potato over and over. So all potatoes at a given time in history had the exact same genetic code, basically. And so when that blight swept through, it just decimated. That's why Ireland was starving.
Yeah. And
so the potato famine was the result of this genetic uniformity that had developed. And so the story of the russet potato kind of begins with this desperate farmer in, I think, New York, if I remember right, but I could have that part wrong, in basically digging through a huge patch of tall grass and weeds because he had a potato successfully flower and come to bud
You're kidding.
and bring seeds. And that's extremely rare. Potato flowers almost never set into seed.
Right. Yeah.
And so as soon as he saw it, he knew he had an opportunity at hand. He was a scientist. He knew he had an opportunity in his hand because if he could preserve those seeds, there's typically, I think, around 15 to 17 seeds per.
Yeah, right.
It's like a little globe. The flower produces this little globe, and if it sets right, you get basically a little nature seed packet. You get this packet of seeds. And so he had cared for this plant like you can't imagine. He was trying to let it come to perfect,
Bloom and everything.
make sure those seeds were fully developed and ready to go because he knew he had an opportunity in hand because he could plant all of the seeds and then see which of the varieties might be resistant, which of the plants that came out might have a natural resistance to that blight. Basically, he could attack it with the blight.
Yeah.
And if a plant survived, you've got a good genetic line going there. And so he had this opportunity in hand, and he basically let him develop as long as he could. But he came out one morning, I think, and the wind had blown the seed pod off the plant. And so he wound up on his hands and knees, I believe, for hours, digging through the tall grass blade by blade until he found that globe of seeds.
Oh, my goodness.
And took it back to his house and carefully saved all the seeds from it, planted them, and did have this plant that was just exceptionally hardy in that bunch. From that, he either took some more seed. I don't think he did because that would be like winning the lottery twice. He propagated that out. And somewhere in all of that, a genetic anomaly occurred, and that skin developed. And it just kind of happened to be that the same plant that produced this exceptionally smooth and starchy flesh and this blight resistance also had this genetic adaptation with the skin. And he wound up with the russet potato, which, became the official potato of McDonald's. And, of course, I think now accounts for something like 80% of commercially grown potatoes. Right. And but all of that was because one man trying to solve the problem of extreme hunger just didn't give up until he found that bulb of seed.
The tenacity.
Yeah.
To forego the circumstance of, a lot of us, I would say 99% of people would have been like, woe is me.
Yeah.
Gave up after searching for a little bit. But to go blade by blade by blade, because you have no idea how far it was blown, if it was even in the same area.
Right.
That's a literal needle in a haystack.
Jesus told parables about that mentality.
Right. But he saved generations.
He did. And what drove him was true hunger. Not his hunger, but hunger on a global scale. Right. He knew he was trying to resolve the issue of actual hunger.
That's incredible. I did not know that story.
I had brought it in here about a month ago because it had run across my attention.
I was going to say, did you learn that on when you grew up?
I did not learn that growing up. I saw a random short, and I thought, that can't be true.
Yeah.
And I went and researched it, and it was.
It's very similar to the story of the man that figured out how to propagate the vanilla bean plant. And because it was so difficult to get it to basically reproduce, that's why, I mean, the vanilla bean is one of the most expensive.
Yes.
I believe it's second, right behind saffron.
Yep.
Saffron might
That's
be number
correct.
one right now.
It is. That last I knew.
Yeah. Extremely, extremely expensive. Like legit vanilla.
Yeah.
Like I'm not talking about the imitation vanilla.
We're saying Madagascar vanilla
Yes.
beans.
Vanilla beans. It's worth more than gold, actually.
Isn't that wild?
Which is wild, right? But he figured out a way, and the reason why it's so expensive is because you almost have to do it by hand.
Right.
You
The
can't-
processing is.
Yes, like it's not like you can manufacture it to be something that's done automatic. But he figured out a way to do it very quickly and consistently.
Yes.
Doesn't get a lot of credit for it nowadays, but I found that to be pretty incredible.
Except in the very high culinary world, obviously.
He was a slave, actually.
That's phenomenal.
He was a slave, and he figured it out.
So he didn't even profit from.
No, he died a poor man.
Boy, ain't that the way of the world in this false reality overlay.
It's wild. It's wild. But here we are. He died a poor man so we can sit in these chairs and look at each other and talk about his life.
And eat Blue Bunny ice cream where the vanilla is made from a plastic byproduct. I kid you not.
Oh, quick plug. If you want to hear more about that, we have an episode about Don't Trust the Process. Go back to the playlist and rock on that one.
That's awesome.
That's a really good episode, man. People slept on that
Slept
episode.
on that episode.
That's a really good episode, though.
No doubt.
I'm
And
sorry,
that
go
was
ahead.
back when we were doing the fun titles. I miss the fun titles.
We did do the fun titles, right? Come on, Don't Trust the Process.
Come on.
That was good.
That was good.
That was good.
He's the title man, by the way. He's that half of your host.
You see, I made sure that I switched up the intro this time. Just for you, sir. Oh, man, that's funny. No, but I've never heard that story. But like you said, it's a testament to if you really care about something, you'll search it out. And I think that's what we're trying to say, even in like this extended intro to this episode. Like people that are hungry, like they're searching out for the nuggets that are being dropped inside these conversations. And you may have to kind of go through this generation, like this microwave mentality. We kind of want like the cliff notes right up top. And I mean, we give you some of the interesting hook points in the beginning, you know, just to kind of get people's, you know, wheels turning.
Right.
But I have found in playing back these episodes for me, and I'm sitting in on the actual live recording, right?
Right.
But me playing it back, I have found just nuggets that like just hit differently upon playback that I didn't quite, you know, navigate through the very first time that I may have heard it. And that's something that takes a level of intention for you to find what the Lord may be presenting to us. I find that especially with sermons. Like upon playback, I don't know, just asking God to give you like ears to hear and eyes to see, you know, correlations, patterns. When you start, those little synapses start to fire and things start to kind of light up and make more sense, that's when it, you know, it gets real fun to do study and research and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I had a conversation years ago with a guy that had been a full-time evangelist, which I did for 3 years. In modern church parlance, we don't mean that exactly the way Paul did in Ephesians 4. We mean itinerant speaker at churches who may operate in the gift of an evangelist, but that is typically what we mean, a guest speaker who travels. But he told me that in all of his years, I think his first 10 years or something of preaching, he only preached about a dozen messages, which I think is extreme.
Yeah.
But he kind of blew me away because I was like, are you kidding me? I'm out here killing myself to have a new message every day. And because, sometimes it was 6 times a week and all that. And I would often go back to an old set of notes. But even now, I can never preach the same thing the same way twice. It just doesn't happen that way. But he said something back to me when I said that kind of impacted my thinking pretty deeply. He said, when someone writes a great song,
Come on.
right?
Yeah.
We put it in our playlist. We buy special albums.
Same thing for a movie.
Same thing with the movie. He said, why does a sermon always have to be one and done? You got the whole thing from beginning. He said, man, once I know God gave me something that's gold, I rock with it. And it impacted my thinking. And I have often found that the second or third time listening to a message that spoke to me actually has a profound effect.
Yes, sir.
A deep impact. And I think that relates to, in the law of Moses, when describing clean animals, they had to be of cloven hoof, split hooves, and they had to chew their cud.
Yeah.
And that word for chew your cud, we call those animals ruminants because they ruminate, regurgitate, and I think you said something about this on a previous episode, maybe when we were talking about meditation.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And because in the Bible, the word for meditate sometimes is that ruminate, to bring it back up and chew it again.
Yep.
And I think it's an important part of clean growth.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
I like that a lot. Clean growth.
Take your time digesting, regurgitate, chew on it a while.
I mean, the psalmist said, I love that word.
Yeah.
It's a lamp unto my feet, light unto my path. Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against you. In order for you to truly bury something, you gotta really become intimate with it.
Have you ever watched an animal chew their cud?
Yes. It's kind of gross.
It is gross, especially if you're there when they burp it up.
Yeah.
But it's funny because the grazing is so busy. They're going from one to the other, and you have different personalities in animals. It's funny. Even within a species, you'll have one cow that just is like a lawnmower, systematic, just eats everything in front of their face, moves a couple inches, eats everything in front of their face. Then you have your highbrow, highfalutin ones that, sniff around and grab that one and grab that one over there. And that always makes me laugh when animals do that. Have you ever watched a monkey try to decide whether they're going to eat? They'll have 3 of the same thing, and they'll be like,
yep.
And then they get the one they like.
Yep.
I don't know what they're checking for, but I guarantee you it's a thing. There's a reason why they want the one they want. Anyway, it's funny because when they're grazing, it's so busy. They're actively consuming, moving. Then they'll get a drink, and they will go lie down. I've noticed this often. They tend to lie down in the sun, which I think matters. They're soaking in that sunlight. That's got to matter. But they tend to lie down in the sun or in the shade if it's super hot. This is Texas, so it varies. And then they'll just kind of settle in very contentedly, get comfortable, and then you hear that disgusting. And if you're in their face when they do it, man,
they got to be the worst.
It's rough. But the look of sheer contentment, and you talk about the ruthless elimination of hurry. I mean, you cannot motivate those. An animal in the middle of chewing its cud, that is what it's doing. Thank you very much. I'll let you know when I'm through. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they just, clearly they enjoy it. It's clear to me that they enjoy it. And they're getting something different. You got to know that the first time they're mostly just breaking it down and ingesting it. But that second and third time, they are getting nutrients that were not available.
It's like the first time is obedience.
Right.
And the second and third time is
falling in love.
It's the enjoyment.
It truly.
Yeah. Man, that's good. That's really good.
We have told a lot of farming stories tonight.
No, you have told a lot of farming stories.
Mr. Vanilla Beans.
Yeah. Okay. I'll slide in there for that story, but there's only one of us that grew up on a farm here in this conversation. And I applaud it. These stories are fascinating to me because you never run out of them. It's incredible some of the lessons you can learn. Something as simple. And that's how Jesus taught. Mm-hmm. He literally, in an agrarian society, was giving very practical, real-life examples that anybody who had ears to hear could readily understand. Like, I'm convinced if Jesus was walking the earth right now and doing the exact same thing, if his time to come was now, right?
Yeah.
The first time, right? I'm convinced he would be using examples like from the internet or culture, something that people would readily relate to like immediately. And that's also why if we're going to be proper students of the Bible, we can't just take it and read it from the surface level. Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to get a lot from just a surface level reading of it because it's life there. But if we're going to be students of the scriptures, we cannot approach serious Bible study with our Western mindset and Western goggles, acting like in our 21st century, these words are pointed directly and I can apply them in my everyday life with one-to-one examples. There's times where you could do that, but there's other times we need to figure out, okay, what did he mean by unequally yoked? Like, what does that actually mean to the audience that it was written to? Let's do a little bit of research. Let's figure out why this was something. We talked about it today, like first century wedding culture.
Yeah.
When he's giving examples or even performing miracles, we start to kind of peel back the layers of those things. Man, it really comes alive. Things are illuminated much differently than just a surface level reading of it.
Who said the thing? I mean, it's been quoted so many times, I don't know if anybody knows who originally said it, but it's very true and very helpful. The Bible was written for us, not to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously there are scriptures written to all them that will believe and all of that. But the actual intended audience of those letters, actually, it's even that is not homogenous because, you know, the readers in whatever, post-exilic, after the exile, Jerusalem, totally different than the readers in Ephesus hundreds and hundreds of years later. And so it's been a long time that people have been needing to recover the cultural perspective, even though their cultures were definitely closer to the original.
Right.
There's been a need to pay attention to who this was written to. Just think about when we read the Declaration of Independence or, the founding documents of this nation, and we are just now coming up on the, what is it, 250th? Is that
250? Yes.
Yeah, 250th. The quadrillennial, something like that. Anyway,
Only you know.
that may not be the right word. But yeah, we're just coming up on 250 years this year since that time, and yet there's a significant gap that we have to cover to really know what is being said in like the argument about the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
The way it's worded, the grammar of it leaves some questions, and part of finding the answer to those questions has to be having an awareness of who they were talking to originally and what they were discussing.
Yeah.
And so if 250 years can do that, and the Bible was written over a couple thousand years ago.
Right.
Yeah, man. It matters that it was written for us, but not to us. Also, I was John St. Julian had some things to say recently about the difference between consuming information as part of a process that you're going through, that God is taking you through, and consuming information as entertainment value. And he was saying, when you are in a journey where you have awakened to some awareness that you didn't used to have,
Right.
that you have a higher level of consciousness that has come online in your life, where you used to interface with the world through a series of assumptions about what the rules are, how things operate, what things mean. And you've had an awareness come online that a lot of that is an illusion. And, there's truth, but a lot of it is obscured by noise, and then a whole lot of it is being intentionally perverted, subverted, suppressed,
All of the above.
all of the above. They're typically, especially now, I think in the information age, it's going to cause you to tend to consume a lot of information really fast.
Yeah.
I think part of that is because information is so easy to consume now.
At least access to it.
Well, yeah. It used to be that you at least had to go to the library or buy a paper or,
We've reduced the friction.
There's no friction.
Yeah.
In fact, there's more friction to not take in information than there is to take it in.
That's funny. It really is. It's like so overcorrected.
By the same token, the friction to produce information was also much higher at that time. Yeah. That doesn't mean that everything that was produced was worthy of consumption. It just means that people had to want to produce it more. If you had to sit down with a quill dip it in a inkwell,
Yeah.
and use some parchment that was super expensive and get all the words right and make it legible. And, you know, you had to really want to put that information out. And of course the printing press reduced some of that. But even then, to sit down at a typewriter, and there's just typically been a higher barrier of entry to be a voice.
Absolutely.
To add your voice to the mix. And then basically beyond that, there was an extremely high barrier to be heard. To get yourself published, to get yourself in front of people, to get eyes on or ears on what you were putting out. So people that were producing information had to be significantly more motivated, more skilled, more,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I do.
More a lot of things. And more connected. And then people to consume information, the same thing. More motivated, probably a significantly higher work ethic about how they were going about it. So now anybody can produce information at any time, and everybody can ingest it all the time. And there are even algorithms like TikToks that reward just Joe Blow from nowhere jumping on and saying something.
Yeah, right.
You will actually, people will hear you. You know, the young TikTokers talk about if you do 3 videos and one hasn't caught fire, maybe shut the channel down and try another one. And I'm like,
Wow.
what? Like, when did that happen? But Gemma was telling me all that when she was in she was briefly interested in content producing, and she actually proved that she could do it. She did it for a few weeks, and she was growing her little following. It was working.
Yeah.
To you parents, just so you know, she grew it a lot slower than she could have, because we watched that thing like a hawk, and all the creepy middle-aged dudes that followed her, we blocked.
Yeah.
And she learned how to identify them and block them. Her following would have easily grown 500% more than it did in the few weeks she was out there.
Wow.
Because at least half the people that were following her were creepy middle-aged dudes. So, my daughter was then 14. Just so y'all all know, that's the reality of the world we're living in.
Insane.
And he gave me so much heartburn to let her do it, and I don't even know if we should have let her do it and all that. But under the circumstances, I felt like, let me let her stretch her wings a little here, and
within like these boundaries,
right?
Yeah.
And I had a feeling, because she's my daughter, that if we let her get it out of her system, she might realize, like, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, she told me that, these TikTokers are saying if you don't get several hundred views on your third video, maybe shut the channel down and start a new one, see what happens, because maybe you're shadow banned and all that. And I was like, that's not how that works. No, it is. That's what happened with her. She actually started and shut down a few accounts, and then one of them, the third video, just took off.
You're kidding me.
No. So it's that easy now.
You are kidding me.
Oh. I wish I was.
So it's just like start and stop, start and stop.
Mm-hmm. Just get that one that the algorithm treats right. And so it is so easy to be heard, so easy to hear. And John St. Julian was saying this actually plays an important role in this collective awakening that's happening, because there is no doubt to me that humanity is collectively rising to a higher level of awareness and consciousness.
Yeah.
That is a double-edged sword. Some of it is healthy and some of it is incredibly unhealthy. But regardless, it's happening at a higher level of awareness than it was before.
Right.
We are waking up. There's an awakening, broadly speaking, around the planet. And so with this happening, John St. Julian was saying it serves a purpose that there is so much information available right now, because basically there is a whole part of the awakening process that is about the destruction of the old world, the destruction of the old identity, the destruction of the ego, all of that. The flood metaphor works perfect for it. Noah's flood is a perfect metaphor for it. You got to be in an ark of safety, but at the same time, your whole world will crumble around you and be covered over. And if you're really going through an awakening, you will experience that. And then there's this process of settling where it stops raining. And now it's actually longer than the deluge, where you have to settle.
What a great metaphor, man.
And this happens again and again.
Yes.
As we've said so many times, this is inception. We are waking up out of the dream again and again and again. And ultimately, we will awake in his presence, and more so as we go. And then at one point, the ultimate expression of that. So it serves a purpose that there is so much information that is so easily accessible, because that's the deluge. The flood waters, the fountains of the deep burst open, the sky pours rain. You know, you wonder about the moon landing. You wonder about the shape of the earth. You wonder about Antarctica. You wonder about, COVID and big pharma. And you wonder. I'm just thinking, how many things can I say that can get this video banned?
Don't forget about 911.
911.
Sandy Hook.
Sandy. I mean, shall we keep going? You go through this process where it's just like, oh my God, everybody's lying about everything all the time. And he said something so profound that if you're not careful, and most of us at least once or twice make this mistake, and I've made it more than that.
Yeah.
If you're not careful, you will cross a line where the deluge is no longer serving the purpose of covering over the old world. Now it has just become the show you're watching.
Oh, my goodness.
And he said, when you hit that point that you, if you're honest with yourself, realize that you've become frustrated with trying to get to the bottom of anything. And I can say that confidently because I already know anybody with an ounce of intellectual gravitas is going to feel like they can't get to the bottom of anything. If they feel like they got to the bottom of anything, it's going to be one thing. But honestly, I don't know what thing that would be, because I have not found the bottom on any of these rabbit holes.
Right.
And so...
I mean, you probably won't.
You probably won't.
Yeah.
Unless you're the kind of person that can shut off your brain and decide you've figured it out. And people do that. I think that's a defense mechanism. They need to feel like they cracked the code, broke out of the matrix.
They finished.
Yes, because it's very uncomfortable being in the floodwaters. And so they need to feel like they got out. And so if you hit the point where you've got that rising frustration of, when will I stop realizing that this also is more lies, more deception, more like, when am I going to get to the bottom of anything? And you're feeling all that frustration. How do I proceed? What does this all mean? And then you're still rabidly consuming it. He said at that point, if you're honest with yourself, you're almost certainly, you've kind of switched to just being entertained by it as kind of a mechanism of, it's almost like to me, it's almost like the idea of gallows humor. Like, well, we're here, we might as well enjoy the show. Like, gallows humor is a defense mechanism because, well, we're in this horrible situation. let's joke a little, let's laugh a little. And that's okay. Dark humor serves a purpose for people who have to deal with traumatic circumstances.
Yeah.
But in a similar way, I think information can become entertainment because you don't know what else to do with it. Because and it hurts to sit with it. It hurts to sit with it.
You think, let me throw this out there because that's good. You think that's why Jesus spoke in parables?
Say on, sir.
For the people that were just, this is another great prophet, this is another great teacher, and he's dropping some good things. I'm going to follow him a bit. And, oh man, he's multiplying fishes and loaves. No one's ever did that before.
Yep.
Shoot, John was just baptizing. He was just doing a lot of yelling and dipping in water. But this man right here, he's a little different. And he's saying a lot of good stuff. So I think I'm going to follow him. But there's no heart transformation. The seed is not falling on any good ground necessarily. And so Jesus is, I am going to speak in a way where the average person is not just, the person who, like you're saying, is just hungry for more knowledge. And what did Paul say? Like, knowledge puffs up?
Yep.
I wonder if that's why he spoke. He chose intentionally to speak in parables. I don't know. What do you think?
Not only do I think that's why Jesus spoke that way, and obviously he's the best there ever is, was, or will be.
Yeah.
It's why Shakespeare spoke that way. It's why many, 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 many people throughout history have spoken the way that they do. It's why the Masons design cathedrals the way that they do. Because most people will look at a cathedral in Europe and say, why are there gargoyles all over this church? Mm-hmm. Why are there six-pointed stars in a cathedral? What isn't that a Jewish symbol? Why are there so-called stars of David all over this cathedral? Why are there clearly rosettas and, in some cases, swastikas and fleur-de-lis, the flower of life? Isn't that occult imagery? You know. And then what do 99 or 999 out of 1,000 people, or 999,999 out of 100, you know what I mean, out of 1 million do? They go, I don't know, but man, it sure is beautiful. Let's go look at this other room and let's go.
Yeah.
And those buildings are designed to convey untold quantities of hidden knowledge. Da Vinci's paintings. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about the kingdom of light, the kingdom of darkness, and we're talking about some stuff that we're not sure where it falls sometimes.
Right.
So I'm not comparing the cathedrals of Europe to the parables of Jesus Christ. We don't have to worry about the parables. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is the message is encoded so that the knowledge being transferred doesn't fall into the hands of someone who either is not ready to digest it or is not worthy to receive it. So the not ready to digest it is, if you're not hungry enough to ingest it, you're not developed enough to digest it.
That's a bar. That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
Babies prefer yogurt to, curry. right? It's funny thing
The
about
babies
that.
I know.
Right. The funny thing about that is their stomachs are ready for yogurt. They're not ready for curry. So your appetites have to develop at the rate at which your digestive system develops. So Jesus was saying things that told the whole
Unlock the whole mystery.
mystery.
Yeah.
Giving the secrets of the universe out in the form of parables about farmers. But it was designed so that only those hungry enough to pursue past the metaphor would find the gold,
Absolutely.
the ore, and also so that those who might twist it, that's the other thing, the unworthy, those who might weaponize it, twist it, try to manipulate it, hijack it, they would be too proud to stop and listen to a story about a farmer went forth to sow his seed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it provides the guardrails for the narrow way. Also, it's the definition of not casting your pearls before swine.
Yes. I was going to say that as well.
And we need to recover that art in many ways of speaking in such a way. I pray about it because it's an art, it's a skill set, and I don't have it. I practice it.
Yeah. I would disagree. I wouldn't say that you don't have it. I think you definitely have it.
I haven't developed it. Go ahead.
Maybe to the way that you want to recall it, and like immediately, I guess, switch on and off. But I've sat in enough meetings and conversations with you where I've heard you navigate a situation very deftly. That's the right way to use that word?
Yes, sir.
Very deftly.
And thank you.
And you're saying a whole lot more than what's actually constituting the sentence. Someone could overhear that sentence and be like, okay, he said this. Yes, he did say those words. But that is not what he said.
That's valid. I've done it on this episode, actually.
Yeah.
Some things we just throw out there so the right ear will prick up and chase that.
Yeah.
But it'll go right over somebody's head if they're not ready for it.
100%.
That's true. I'm no Jesus of Nazareth, obviously, but you're right. We do use that.
Right.
We,
I think you almost, and starting to learn how to speak in those layers, that's what sets you apart for being not only a storyteller, but like mastering communication. Like, man, you don't really know something until you can like explain it to like a child.
yeah.
Like without using the words that you normally would use to describe or explain whatever you're trying
Without
to explain.
talking shop, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like I have found myself, you know, at times explaining things to my children. And I'm like, well, the concept is easy. Well, hold on. Let me put it, you don't know what that word is.
Right.
Let me explain it to you like this. And so I'm trying to find other ways of explaining something. And I've struggled at times. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how I could drill it down even further to make it be understood. But I think that's a sign of not really understanding a concept well enough to be able to do so, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, now with AI, people have kind of outsourced their brain
Right.
for something else to think for us now.
It's funny you saying that made me flash to my dad telling me when I was little, when I asked him how cars go. And I am not a naturally mechanical person, certainly when it comes to cars. Like,
Now, let me ask you. So when you asked your dad, how old are you, dude?
I'm going to say I was probably 4 or something like
I
that.
think you said like 35.
It could have been like it would still be a valid question.
No.
But his answer, what made me chuckle internally was I realized I'm still basically operating off the answer he gave me back then because it worked. He said, well, to have fire, you have to have heat and air and fuel, right? And I was like, yeah, I get that. And he
At
said,
4?
well, he probably explained that. He probably said, anyway, he said, there's a little thing that makes a spark.
He was
and
explaining internal combustion to a 4-year-old.
He said
That's awesome.
He said there's another little thing that shoots gas into the motor, and then there's a little thing that makes a spark, and there's air being sucked in at the same time, and the air and the spark and the fuel all come together. And he goes, what do you think happens when all those things come together? And I said, fire? And he said, yeah, it goes boom. And I said, yeah, I could see that. And he said, well, they built it so that the boom is trapped inside of this little tunnel, and the boom has to go somewhere. So the boom goes up, and it drives this little thing they call a piston up, and that's basically what makes the car go. He said they have gears to make that turn the wheels. And I remembered that for the rest of my life. It goes boom, and the boom has to go somewhere. And they just hooked gears up to that and made the car go. But that is hard to explain.
But you had just explained it very well.
Well, he did. It's
crazy.
basically how I still think about it.
Yeah, that's so funny. I'm trying to imagine a world where I'm having this conversation with Kiani. And I can't fathom that.
To be fair, I was very talkative 4-year-old.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So
That's amazing.
all this, knowledge that what has always been available, the parables of Jesus, the cathedrals of Europe, Shakespeare, all of these sources of knowledge that have been available, I would say the work to obtain the knowledge overwhelms the entertainment value at a point. Most people that are just getting the entertainment value out of King Lear go to Shakespeare under the stars, every year or two. Maybe it's a tradition for them if they're really into theater, and maybe their local theater does it or whatever. And
Right.
so, they enjoy it, and they really like it, and they like the costumes, and they love the flowery, speech and all of that. And it makes them feel fancy for the night and whatever. And so, that's probably, and maybe it makes them feel smart too, So probably a majority of people just suffer through it in school, and then a minority of them connect to it somehow, the vibe of it, and they learned at a very rudimentary level how to draw meaning from it in the school. High school, when they had to read Macbeth or whatever they had to read, and so they kind of know how to make heads or tails of the story. And so, they're getting entertainment value out of it, so they go, or if they're super committed, they read it or whatever. but it's a very small minority of people who are going to be vested enough to think, yeah, but what was he talking about? Like, what did he write it? To even find out that Shakespeare was speaking metaphorically is a level of knowledge that a lot of people don't even get to.
They don't.
But the ones that do are probably more curious than the average bear. And of those, most, if not many, if not most of them, probably file that away as an interesting an interesting talking point. Makes them sound smart at dinner parties. Did you know Shakespeare was an initiate? You know, he was a member of secret societies and whatnot, and you know, was speaking metaphorically, but out of all of those, precious few people ever say, yeah, what is the metaphor? What's he talking about? Because you can milk all of the entertainment value and so many other, you know, you already made yourself look smart. You already made yourself look cultured. You already got your evening out. You already got so much out of it that satisfies the average person. How many people are going to stick with it to really pick up what he's laying down, right? So in that way, knowledge has always been shielded in history, has always been shielded from the unprepared or the unworthy. Oh no, I gotta silence that. Knowledge has always been hidden from the unprepared and the unworthy because the entertainment value will run out before you're done digging. It's not like that here in the information age.
No.
The entertainment value remains and is so easily accessed. And what he said that really caught my attention was, you'll know that you have crossed that Rubicon where you're just milking entertainment value out of the noise.
Right.
If fear... he said, if confusion and indecision have entered your life and you are still plowing on, taking in more information.
Like you don't like pause.
Right.
And like do an inventory of your soul at that point.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think psychologically speaking, it's avoidance.
Of course.
It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And upsetting a lot of times to you know, algorithmically, it's such a strange thing that happens in your brain. We've talked about this before. It's such a strange thing that happens in your brain when you can watch one of the most upsetting or confusing things you've ever seen and scroll and you're looking at an AI Garfield cartoon or Dilbert or a kitten or, you know, Fail Army doing like, you know, funny athlete fails or, and then you scroll again and because the algorithm knows you, all of a sudden here we're back in upsetting territory, going down a rabbit hole, and there's creepy music and there's fear in it because this is about, did you know that the World Health Organization, yada, 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 but nobody's telling you. And that's upsetting and confusing and makes you wonder if you should get the flu shot this year or not. And then you go again, and either it's something else upsetting and confusing from a different angle, or back to, it's a baby saying an inappropriate word, or
Yeah.
and it's all such a that's a strange thing to happen to a person. And on a very real level, it's actually extremely traumatizing. The trauma is real that people are getting from this, but it does come with dopamine hits and serotonin, and you can always fix whatever it broke quite easily by just keeping on going. And so he was pointing out that confusion doesn't come from God, and indecision is a product of being out of alignment with the will of God. That's what John St. Julian said. God doesn't author confusion, and indecision is a product of not being in alignment with the divine will. If you are at one with your Creator, indecision's not a big part of things, because you hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it.
Yeah.
You know what you need to do. You may not feel comfortable with it or
You may
want
not
to.
do it. Yeah.
Jesus dealt with that. But you have clarity.
Yes.
So confusion and indecision are supposed to be your friend. They're supposed to be tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, you don't need intake right now. You're in overwhelm.
We just ignore the check engine light.
The Bible says on the 40th day after 40 days and 40 nights, on the next day, the rain ceased. The fountains of the deep closed back over. And the ark began to rest on the water top and move toward somewhere to land. And it was 40 days and 40 nights of open flooding, but it was 150 days of integration, of settling in and letting the old world, drop away and letting the new world begin to appear and reveal itself. And so his suggestion was that a lot of us are in a stage right now where we've taken in enough, and it's time to turn off some inputs. I know we sound like broken records, and I fully appreciate the irony of saying this on a podcast. And it's time for us to come aside and sit in the presence of God and let the waters recede and let the ark come to rest, and send out a raven and send out a dove and find out when we're supposed to come out. And there will be another day for intake. But right now, the only value we're getting is entertainment, and the entertainment is only hurting us because it's just deepening the confusion, the fear, and the indecision.
My goodness gracious. That's good.
And so, as uncomfortable as it is, if you're feeling confusion, overwhelm, fear, indecision, a lack of clarity, these things are easily solved, but they can only be resolved in the presence of the living God. That's it. And so what do? We go back to the basics. Fasting, because it weakens the flesh. Prayer, because it feeds and strengthens the spirit. Reading the Word of God, because it's nutrition and it's life. And sitting still.
Yeah.
And just being in His presence. And you'll know when you'll know when the integration is complete enough to continue, because the dove will come back with an olive branch. You'll know when peace says,
Come on, when peace returns to you.
the anointing is ready.
That's so good.
There's oil.
That's so good. And you only get that type of layered metaphor jewel from the scripture by continuing to visit that well. The average person knows the story of Noah.
I'm so glad you said this. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that we learned it in Sunday school. We teach our kids this story. And by the time they're adults, they're like, well, I know that story already.
Uh-huh.
Let's move on. It's like, no, you maybe don't know the story. You may have understood the very, very tippy top, surface level, historic aspects of the details of that story. But you do not know how it applies to your life, how you can use it to help protect you in an age of information overload, and allow the Holy Spirit to start to reveal to you through a very practical example of how you can pattern yourself and survive the deluge.
Come on.
Like that's so good. Man.
I'm really glad you said that, because what I had been originally going to point out is that act of taking in information at a constant deluge like that, and using the entertainment value to anesthetize ourselves to the discomfort of sitting with the ruins of the old world until they can be integrated and the new world can appear.
Yeah.
That is the equivalent of a cow that never stops actively grazing. Just moves across the field, eating and eating and eating and eating. And, you know, any farmer listening to this will know right away, oh, that cow's going to get an impacted stomach, and we're going to have to do we're going to have to puncture its side to relieve the gas, to do emergency procedure, or it will explode. Literally. It will blow that cow to bits. It'll just kill it, because that's skipping that crucial step of taking a long, slow drink from a quiet stream and lying down in the sunlight to chew the cud.
Yeah.
And ruminate on it. So what we do is we said earlier that rumination, meditation on these things is kind of a crucial step of clean growth. Clean animals have to do this. But it's like, it's true. Sitting and ruminating and bringing it back up and chewing on it again and all of that in a position of rest is crucial to integrating the nutrients from truth that we need and eliminating what we don't need. All of that is true, and it's crucial for clean growth. But failure to do so will kill us.
Yes, it will.
And so, you said a minute ago, we know these stories from Sunday school, like this metaphor we're using for the flood, and or how we're using the flood as a metaphor. We don't know these things because basically because we hear, to be fair, it's because we hear them repeated every year, and the exact same lessons are drawn from them. And so it's like, yeah, I know that one. what is sad, use the story of David and Goliath, which is so often taught as a personal growth kind of inspirational.
You can knock your giant down.
Yeah, you can knock your giant, what's sad is quite often the metaphor that we are taught is actually false. Like in that case, that's not what the story of David and Goliath is about.
Oh.
And so the metaphor we are taught, first of all, a lot of times we're not taught any metaphor. Like the flood is a good example. No one wants to find any metaphor in that story. Yet I would argue the primary reason that story made it into the Bible is metaphor.
Yeah.
Are there other purposes it serves that have to do with history? Yes. Yeah. They're not necessarily as clear cut as what people think they are. That part can be debated. They may be, they may not be. But yes, there are real historic reasons why it's included in the Bible. And yes, it does pertain to a thing that really happened. But I don't think that's why it made it into the Bible. I think the primary reason it made it into the Bible in many ways is because we need to understand the metaphor. The metaphor is actually repeated again and again and again throughout Scripture to the point that it's like, okay, God really wants us to get this lesson.
Yeah.
But so we're taught stories that may even be primarily for the purpose of metaphor, and we're taught no metaphor with them. It's extremely dogmatic. This is history. This is science. This is what you have to get from this, or you're not a Christian. You're not in the tribe. You're not in the club. Turn in your card, right? Or we're taught something like David and Goliath, and the metaphor we're given doesn't even really apply.
Yeah.
But we stop looking for anything else in it because we're told that we already understand the metaphor. So we miss the gospel in it when the gospel is like quite preeminent in the story of David and Goliath. That metaphor gets glossed over a lot. But what I think people don't realize most of the time, it seems to me, is that the Bible is in many ways a sacred, God-breathed repository of hidden wisdom. I would use the word occult knowledge, but it would terrify people. But that's because of baggage.
I mean, of course, the word occult means hidden.
It literally, like when we say the occult, that's a shorthand way we have to refer to people who pass on knowledge for subversive purposes that have to do with building the kingdom of darkness.
Right.
But that's not the actual meaning of that word. And throughout most of history, that isn't what it referred to.
It's been co-opted.
It's been co-opted. So I don't want to scare people by saying occult knowledge, hidden knowledge. But
did that passage is called the Bible occult?
Right. But it is a book of in many ways, the Bible is an inspired repository of the most profound and hidden wisdom of the universe, the secrets that all of mankind is searching for all the time. I have found the Holy Grail. I know where it is. It's in the Bible. You want Solomon's treasure? You just have to hunt.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
These things are right there. But in the wisdom of God, they are only obtained by those who ruminate by those who sit with it, by those who fall deeply and truly in love with it, and by those who knock on the door of wisdom by coming in through the gate of humility and find their way to the narrow path and find out that God never was out beyond the furthest galaxy and deep below the deepest sea, that the whole time he was right there, like within you. And the Bible has given you the roadmap to find your way to that pearl of great price, which is so much more than just you don't have to die and go to hell. But you're only going to get there if you develop that, if you're willing to get down on your hands and knees and sift through the grass blade by blade.
Yeah.
And the way the false reality overlay works, the way the simulation works, is these layers of confusion that start often with a level of disinformation, like David and Goliath is about personal empowerment. But then they also proceed to just dogma is a big tool of deception. That when we read things, we need to start honoring the Bible enough to let it be what it is.
Let it speak for itself.
Dude. Let it be the treasure trove of wisdom that God inspired it to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And find what he hid in it. But a lot of the layers of confusion that keep people from that path to whatever you want to call it, awakening, whatever. A lot of the what is obfuscating that is people just thinking they already understand that.
Exactly.
They've already read it. They know about it. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I think Jesus told parables for that reason.
What a full circle moment. Yeah. No, I could not have put that better. That's not even really what you want to even talk about tonight.
It is related, though. It's not what you had wanted to talk about either.
Yeah, there's always time to talk about that. We'll spend forever dissecting the Word of God, so I'm always down for that because we still owe more of a deeper dive with these commandments.
I know.
Yeah.
That'll eke out over time. It's funny to me. I think it's productive to let one sit for a little while.
I agree. Especially when that was kind of what's the word I'm using? It's definitely world shaking. Especially for some people's worldviews.
Yep.
So yeah, we're gonna let that bad boy slow cook for a bit.
What do you want to do? We're at a critical juncture right here.
Let's talk about what you had mentioned. Let's jump into that. Even if we don't, we can't cover it all. Let's start the conversation.
Well, I think it actually
'cause I think it applies, especially
It does.
with what we're talking about, because just for the simple fact that we've set the framework, we've laid the ground, or we've built the framework and laid the ground for people to understand why it's important for you to dig and search out for knowledge, but also presented the counter of why. I like how you did that. I'm just now real time realizing what he did. And you all will see very shortly exactly that too. Yo, that's crazy. Yes. No, jump into it, because I don't want to.
Say it, and then when we get there.
Oh, that's cool. All right, so we've laid the groundwork of a thought process. We've gave how we put it, like a thesis statement?
There you go.
Yeah.
That'll work.
We presented our thesis. This is why this is important. Why knowledge is something that is worth seeking after, worth digging for.
Right.
Then we've also presented the antithesis. Antithesis. I knew that didn't sound right when I first said it.
Antithesis.
Right. So the antithesis of the thesis of saying, wait a minute, too much of digging and searching for knowledge can present itself in a way where you are overwhelmed because it's just entertainment at that point, and you're not able to receive all of that, digest it.
Yep.
You're going to explode.
Yep.
Because you haven't necessarily ruminated on what you've already learned. And so now we're presented with a crossroads. We have two opposing sides lying Antikemi.
Right.
Like how I did that right there. Lying Antikemi to one another. So what's left in the middle?
So we have a thesis. Mm-hmm. Seek knowledge, pursue knowledge, wisdom, understanding.
Yeah.
We have an antithesis, which is too much of a good thing is not a good thing. So, like everything else, the pursuit of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding can become an idol. And so once you realize that it's causing you a level of confusion and failure to be able to discern what the will of God is, indecision, and fear, anxiety, all of that, learn to what? Stop and integrate and let it settle out, right?
Right.
And somewhere in that process, between the thing that upended the apple cart, disturbed your worldview, mm-hmm. shattered your understanding of how things are, and the confusion that resulted from it and the pushback within yourself where you found yourself caught in that tension, if you'll be still and know that he is God and let it settle, somewhere in all of that, truth will reveal itself.
Yes.
The ark will come to rest on the top of the mountain. The water will recede. The dove will return. You will be able to open the door and build an altar, begin a new life in this new reality until the next time he lets your world be turned upside down. And you will have truth and wisdom will be what you gained out of it. Yeah. Knowledge and understanding. Peace, love, and joy will be the fruit of that. That's called synthesis. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right?
Right.
where by his spirit working in you, you're able to assimilate the tension and hear his voice, the still small voice, he'll speak to the wind and the waves. This idea has been co-opted in many ways by the kingdom of darkness as a mechanism of maneuvering the public mindset. So just the way that God can use it to distill truth and clarity out of chaos and confusion for you, but in the same way, the kingdom that lies Antikemi to us can use it to basically the inverted version of that principle to manipulate the masses. And what we call that methodology, and it is a pop culture shorthand, it's clumsy because from an academic perspective, it's not fair. We call it the Hegelian Dialectic. And that is in reference to this George Frederick, I'm not going to say his name probably totally right, but I think, George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel.
Yeah.
Philosopher who incidentally was born just about the time the United States was born. He was born in 1770. So he would have been 6 years old when, the Revolutionary War kind of reached the crescendo. And so I say that calling what we just talked about the Hegelian dialect in reference to this philosopher Hegel, who was very influenced by, Kant and some of the other great, I guess you'd call them medieval philosophers. It's a little unfair to call this method of mass manipulation, mind control, whatever you want to call it. It's a little unfair to call it the Hegelian dialectic because it's a misapplication of Hegel's principle.
Yeah.
But it works. And because it works, we should understand it.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's used a lot. So Hegel really, and I'm not a philosopher, so I'm going to say this in layman's terms, but a dialectic in layman's terms is just a way of having a conversation.
Yes.
It's a way of interacting with a concept and having a conversation about it.
Yes.
So philosophers are big on dialectics because you need to have a format to have an organized conversation. A lot of what is missing in a lot of social media conversations is any form of dialectic. Nobody knows how to have a conversation.
No, it's just chaos.
Yeah. We had this conversation a few episodes back when you were blown away that I was raised to kind of consider opposing views.
When we mentioned that we would like to kind of dive into this, that's actually what came to mind, was this way of thinking and approaching ideas is very much what you were taught growing up.
It was, and they actually told us this is dialectic. That's what we're learning is
That's amazing.
how to dialogue about substantive issues and wrestle with them in a productive way. And
It's also what you're teaching your children.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
By God's grace, I
Yeah.
think that's true. Which is a journey. That's challenging.
Because we don't live in a binary world.
No. And they know that.
Yeah.
And so they're really wrestling with one of the challenges for them is finding any absolutes.
Oh my God. I can imagine that being overwhelming. Because it's
Yeah.
like, where do I anchor at?
Yep.
If I continue to use, because what I was reading about it is one of the great ways about dialoguing through this is that you replace but with and.
Right.
And that small tweak of the word makes such a tremendous difference in making space for your all of the emotions you might be feeling. You know?
Yep.
It's like you saying, I'm frustrated that you were late to come to record, but I'm happy that we get to do this.
Right.
Or I could say, I'm frustrated that you were late to record, and I'm happy that we get to do this. Two of those emotions, you weren't late to record. By
No,
the way.
but yeah,
like
for the first time ever.
right. But it's giving room for both of those emotions and feelings to have the proper space and weight, and for you to feel both of those things and have the space to articulate it to somebody, and hopefully they'll be able to receive
Yep.
both of those very real, equally important emotions that are being articulated. And how do you digest that?
What a great example. Why do you think it is that it's more intuitive for us to say, I'm frustrated that you were late to record, but I'm glad that you're here? Why is it more intuitive for us to say that than I'm frustrated that you're here to record, that you're late to record, and I'm glad that you're here?
I think it's that binary world thinking. Like, you have to be this or that. And I loved it how Darius Daniels has always drilled this concept in our minds. He's like, I'm not this or that. I'm this and that. Like, you can't put me in a box. Like, I'm a prolific speaker. I'm a pastor. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a husband. Like, I don't have to pick and choose one or the other. Like, I can be absolutely everything that God created me to be. But I think that I don't know if that's drilled into our minds as children. Like, you have to pick. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, you got to choose one.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like you could be whatever you want to be. You got to pick one.
You got to be something.
Got to be something. Got to pick one.
Yeah, because you can't monetize. It's very challenging without becoming an extreme. You have to be uber successful to monetize being several things.
Yeah, we've demonized being a jack of all trades, but we also never quote the last part of that phrase.
And a master of none. I think you're absolutely right about the false duality, the binary that we are confronted with all the time. I also think that relates to, I think it's uncomfortable for you and I to have to sit here. If you say to me, I'm frustrated that you came here late, but I'm glad you're here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right? My natural response is going to be, yeah, sorry about that, bro. Yeah, I'm glad to be here too. And it gave us both an easy out.
Right. Like, we've addressed the frustration, but I'm letting you off the hook.
And what we've done, if you're not done being frustrated that I'm here late, right?
Yes.
We have just given ourselves an easy out to leave that unaddressed, to leave that frustration unaddressed, and quote unquote focus on the positive, which is more comfortable for both of us. Because it's uncomfortable for me to sit here and know that you are frustrated that I'm here late and you're glad that I'm here because, yeah, we've definitely got common ground to go forward on, but we have something we need to address because you're frustrated. Whereas you've given me the ability to not really address it. I can just rubber stamp being done with it. But what if you're not done with it? And then you haven't honored yourself enough.
That's the key. And that's why I think people are left feeling so frustrated.
Right.
Because, like you said, we don't honor ourselves enough to sit in whatever very real emotion, and we submerge it and we suppress it to the point where that's why people go off and they explode eventually.
Yes.
Look, it's the cow again.
Yeah, the cow again.
It's the cow again.
That exploding cow is really
it's
following us around tonight.
right.
I think that's a lot of the reason why we don't do dialectics in our society as a whole, because they're uncomfortable. It's much easier to shut stuff down. We're obsessed with this in short form media. So-and-so shuts down, let's just say, Charlie Kirk shuts down blue-haired libtard, Jesse Jackson humiliates Trump supporter.
Yeah.
We want to see people obliterated. We want to see people shut down. Why, though? Why? Because it reaffirms to us that we picked the right tribe.
Yes, it does.
So we want those gotcha moments. Yeah, see, it's good that I'm not listening to their side because it's stupid, because you can shut it down. When anybody who's ever done any content creation knows for a fact that's not how that conversation played out in real life. That person probably said something that person probably made a reasonable counterpoint, at least from their perspective, something that should be honored enough to acknowledge that it was said and sit with the discomfort of it and work through it. But it's so much simpler to end the conversation with a gotcha, with a shutdown.
Come on.
No different than this, I'm frustrated that you are late to record, and I'm glad you're here, being much more uncomfortable than, but I'm glad you're here. And I hope people are grasping that, because you can put your situation in whatever your wife gets mad at you every day about, or your husband. You know what I mean?
It will revolutionize the way that you argue.
Right.
You won't even have to argue.
No, you actually might communicate.
Yeah. Right.
And learn to honor yourself and honor each other, because failure to honor yourself is failure to recognize the imago Dei in you.
Yes.
If you're made in the image of God, you're worth honoring. And I have a hard time with that. I have a very hard time honoring the feelings that I'm having, because I learned a long time ago that I could avoid the vast majority of confrontation in life if I just shoved my own feelings down and let everybody else have theirs and mediate those. And people loved me for it. I was always the peacemaker, and to an extent, that's a gift that works in me, because I was named a name that basically, that gift has been in me from birth.
Yes, sir.
But, because my name really means from peace. Mm-hmm. But I've corrupted that through trauma in my life and just learned to shove all my stuff down, and that takes a big factor out. Now I'm in and nobody can understand how I'm always in this position to be the cooler head and get everybody else calmed down and everything, but it's because we got rid of the complicating factor of my feelings and what, you know what I mean?
My God.
And so that hasn't been good for me, and that's borne bad fruit in my life. And the truth is, it's borne bad fruit in the lives of people around me because I enabled them.
It's unhealthy.
Yeah. So this, anybody who's ever done, and I haven't done it, but I've been around it a little, anybody who's ever done improv knows the yes and method.
Yes.
You never say no. You never say...
Because it stops the flow of the creativity.
It's a dialogue ender.
Yes.
It ends the scene. You just wrote off everything they said, and instead of building on it, now you've started a new thing. Mm-hmm. If you say no or but, so they have to say yes, and, so the person's, say Steve Carell, there's a famous Office scene where he's doing improv, and he keeps pulling out Uzis. And
yes.
You remember?
Right, I do.
Just the most inappropriate, but he loved it because everybody had to yes and.
The world building was infinite.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable.
Right.
But you have a conversation. There's a dialogue. The story moves forward. And so dialectic is a powerful skill to hone, and philosophers have been obsessed with the mechanics of it. How do we have conversations? How do we think about things? And so, in social media, it comes to the front that the lack of ability to do that literally destroys the ability of a society to have a conversation about anything. We are all screaming about everything, and we are talking about nothing.
That's good.
And so, the ability to interact with point and counterpoint is a skill of maturity. And Hegel thought about it in a way, he didn't encapsulate it in these words. I think it was actually Kant who greatly influenced him, who I believe is who's thought to have actually said it this way. But Hegel organized this way of thinking about it that we often describe as thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Mm-hmm. And that is, in my opinion, quite helpful when trying to work through an idea. A thesis is a statement that needs to be examined and disproven or defended. So I can say anything as a thesis. I can say that the sky is not blue. And, there we are. It might surprise some people. I could give a reasonable defense of that. I could even defend that all the way through a conversation because it's debatable whether the sky is blue. But that being the thesis, then somebody's going to raise an antithesis. For instance, we know the sky's not really a color, but does it matter that it appears blue? Well, the ancient Greeks and so on did not have a word for blue, so nothing ever appeared blue to them. The very fact that anything appears blue to us is a product of us having verbiage for that.
We've created that category.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so language is way more powerful than we think it is.
Yes, it is.
Think about that. For thousands of years, there was never a blue sky.
That kind of thinking can really make your head hurt.
Hey, listen, man, language
good.
is the programmic. Language is one of the most fundamental programs we run on top of our perception that shapes our experience of the world.
Yeah.
And people who grow up with different languages actually perceive the world extraordinarily different from each other. And this is a whole rabbit hole that we will not go down tonight. But the English language is deeply entwined with the language of magic and spellcasting.
We got to definitely round that bit.
That's just a little bone,
Yeah.
but that is there.
As far as spelling,
All of that.
right.
Very unique relationship between English and the language of magic.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, your language greatly impacts your experience of the world. An example at least in Mexico, at least the parts of Mexico I've interacted with, it's common when you say gracias, which even that word as thank you, that's different. That root word being grace or gracious, that's a different way of approaching gratitude than thank you.
Yes.
But the response that I've received most often is de nada. It is nothing. And I have a friend who is of Mexican descent who says, I never liked that. And I can't even remember what the alternative that he had learned was. I think it's something they say in a different Spanish-speaking country. But he didn't like that because it isn't nothing.
Yeah, something was given, yeah.
Yeah, something was given, service was rendered. It wasn't nothing. So he never liked that way of discounting, but it's a way of seeing the world. It's kind of interesting because I'm not trying to speak for a culture, but it is interesting to me. What would that do to your psyche if every time somebody thanked you for something, your response had to be, it was nothing? Is that not internally, speaking of honoring yourself, is that not somewhat dismissive? I don't know. You're welcome is our most common response. And I don't know. I have questions about it. Are we saying you're welcome to what I just gave you? Or is the statement bigger than that? Because I don't want to be welcoming everybody into all areas of my life at all times.
I'm not giving agreement. Carte blanche.
Right.
Yeah.
So my pleasure, maybe if it was, no problem. If it wasn't, I don't know. There's way language frames the world, and it frames how we perceive it, right?
Yeah.
So these metrics that we have, we really don't understand how critical they are to our perception of the world.
Right.
So I could put a thesis out that says the sky's not blue. Somebody could respond, yes, it is. I just saw it today. And somebody else could say, well, technically, you're right. It's whatever. That's how the light bouncing off the particles looks. And somebody else could say, well, to us, it didn't to the ancient Greek. We're having... So there's thesis, antithesis, and what we're looking for now is synthesis.
Yeah.
We're looking for a way to bring these ideas together to resolve the tension between them and hopefully find truth would be the best outcome. At least we're looking to find common ground that we can proceed off of, right? That concept really resonated for Karl Marx. So Marx and Engels each kind of undertook different parts of that concept and in their minds refined it. But basically, Marx said That's nice, but it's too idealistic. Our problems are not ideas. Our problems are application. We need to take that process of addressing issues and apply it in a materialistic way. Instead of idealistic, having to do with ideas, which is what Hegel was dealing with,
Right.
we need to apply that to the material world. And we need to, where thesis exists, we put forth the issue. Workers are not being paid enough. Hours are too long. Whatever. And then the antithesis would be, well, we could solve it this way. Yeah, but that's going to produce this problem. Well, we could solve it that way. That's going to produce this issue. And the idea would be, synthesis would be, here's the solution and it benefits the workers.
So would we consider synthesis compromise?
I think that's...
Or is that a very wooded way of describing it?
Well, I think I think you're thinking in a somewhat Western democratic way when you say that. Mm-hmm. To me, we're used to compromise being sometimes the only way forward. I was going to say often the only way forward, but we're in end stage democratic process. So it's not always compromise. Often now it's subterfuge. Now we have to make everybody feel they got a solution while no one actually gets one, except the ruling class, right?
Yeah, so you're diving a much deeper layer. That's...
Yeah, but I would say from an idealized Western democratic perspective, yeah, we'd probably be looking for compromise. Marx wasn't looking for compromise. Marx was looking for the workers win. That's what he was looking for. Forgive me, those of you that are more astute on all of this. It's been 25 years since I read Marx and Engels, but that is the idea.
That makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah. So, Marx was a revolutionary. To my mind, he wanted... It was a zero-sum game in many ways. He was always looking for the workers come out on top.
He wanted to make America great again.
Yeah, he was trying to reverse the world order. Right.
Yeah.
That is a really relevant example, because in theory, the MAGA movement is America first. They don't want what's fair. Yeah. They want what's best for America. And the theory behind that thinking is that's how every country should feel. And the tension that results from that should produce the global order. That whoever's got the most,
gravitas.
Yeah.
The pull, the cachet.
Whoever brings the biggest gun to the fight, you know what I mean? Whoever's got the most leverage comes out on top. And that's the world order. And I hate it for you if that doesn't work out well for your country, but our responsibility is our country.
Yeah.
So there you go. So their thesis would be, too much of our manufacturing has gone to China. Antithesis would be, we can't afford the prices when manufacturing is done here. And synthesis would be, fine, we'll put tariffs on the stuff from China. That way we can't afford not to make it here.
Curveball. That's good.
Okay.
Apply it to the 10 virgins.
The what?
The 10 virgins.
Ha!
Because I feel like there's an application there.
That's good. So 5 of them are foolish.
Right.
They take no oil with their lamps. oil in their lamps, no oil with their lamps. 5 of them are wise. They have a flask of oil with their lamps.
They're prepared,
Right,
and they are all about themselves.
right.
There is no sharing of our extra oil
No.
with you.
In a sense, the thesis there is I think the thesis there is everybody needs enough oil to make it to see the bridegroom. The antithesis is 5 of us. What would be the...
Because I feel like I know what the synthesis is. The synthesis is you go get your own oil.
Yeah, I mean the synthesis...
While we're meeting the bridegroom.
Right.
And take heart, this is a bad way to live your life.
Yeah, it's like a holy version of the America First idea. It's like you not having enough oil. A solution to that is us also not having enough oil. That's not going to be a solution.
Right.
We can't all not have enough oil.
Right.
So hurry.
So, yeah.
This, to me, I think what you're getting at is why it can be a dangerous game to play what Marx was doing.
Yeah.
Taking something that was designed to be a format for wrestling with ideas and turning it into a blueprint for solving problems in the material world is not always...
I agree. I don't think it can be like a rigid blueprint. I think it could be a framework for you to observe and take it like how we're talking about it. It's not an either or. It could be and. You could look at it like the other parable of Jesus, who knocks on his neighbor's door asking for something, and their reply is, I've put my children to sleep, the house is shut down. Who, if you don't consistently and persistently knock on the door, his friend will eventually open it up because he's your friend.
Yeah.
So there's something to say about that aspect of persistence as well. I don't know.
It's pretty interesting. That's an interesting application. And I would have to sit with that for a while.
Like, am I just like
No.
off?
No. Like, I don't think it's crazy to view it through that prism.
Yeah.
I think if we really did that from Jesus' perspective, the thesis would be, I think, this would be my best stab at it. The thesis would be you're going to need enough oil to make it through the night and the journey. The antithesis would be we don't all have extra oil. And the synthesis would be get it now.
Hurry.
Instead of napping. Go get it. Because while the bridegroom tarried, they all fell asleep. That was their window.
That's good. That's exactly how I would look at it. Yeah.
And I think that works. As a mechanism of having a conversation about a deep idea like that, I think that works.
Yeah.
The reason I'm taking a minute to defend the Hegelian dialectic is because in certain corners of the conspiracy-minded world, the Hegelian dialectic has become a catch-all. It's become code for what the cabal does.
Yeah.
But as with virtually all ideas, if not all ideas that lack all nuance, that's not quite it. They co-opted it. Mm-hmm. It's been perverted. And we call it the Hegelian dialect because that's a short form that points at a way of moving, but it's not what Hegel was talking about.
No.
So from a truth matters, precision matters. I think it matters that we understand things with a level of nuance. So I think it matters that we don't just automatically, just because we hear a buzzword repeated a lot doesn't mean it's totally accurate, and accuracy counts for something. So we are referring to something that we're going to talk about more as the Hegelian dialectic, but I wanted to set it up, and that's why I like that you brought in the virgins, because that kind of proves that as a way of thinking through an idea and conversing about it can be pretty useful. But that's why you don't, not everything that is beneficial in philosophy is helpful in government. Not everything that's useful in government is beneficial in religion.
Come on.
Not everything that is in the Bible is intended to be viewed through a science lens. Again, this just goes back to the skill of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. How do we actually think about things? And it's a skill we've lost, and to a large extent, I have a huge advantage over most people that I know because I was homeschooled and it was a quality education. So a lot of people I know were public schooled, probably a majority. And then some people like my wife were blessed to receive a good homeschool education, but many that received a homeschool education, it had its own shortcomings. But for those who were schooled in the public school system, you need to know you were deliberately not taught this. And for those who were homeschooled, many of you didn't learn this because your parents were deliberately not taught this.
Right. So you had no chance either.
So the fact that you don't know how to wrestle through issues is not your fault. What would be your fault is if you didn't learn now.
There you go.
And that's not a problem you're going to solve overnight. It's a challenge you're going to work on and grow into. So relax, but also press on.
Buckle up,
Yeah. Lean into the discomfort. So Marx and Engels latched onto this. They openly stated, we don't like it for its application to idealistic conversations, but we like it when it's converted to a mechanism for materialistic problem solving. Okay.
Of course.
Yeah. It was, I think, a charitable term for it, and maybe even an accurate term would be an adaptation.
Yeah.
Right? But then some other parties got interested. Industrialists and massive corporations found usage. And ultimately, governments and influential families and organizations that are involved in especially the unseen hand, the man behind the curtain, the cabal, whatever you want to call them, you know, the people whose names we don't really know, who cut the checks that the politicians and thought leaders we do know have to have in order to get where they are and stay where they are. They found application for it. And the way that application has typically worked is create a crisis, foresee the reaction, propose the solution. What you have to get to understand how useful this has been and continues to be is they don't start by saying, well, if we created this crisis, maybe we could get that reaction, and then, we could come up with a solution and everybody would like us and back our ponies, the politicians we favor because of the solution. That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. They start from the solution that they want to implement. And I'm using solution very loosely. Remember, the solution is not solving anything for you. If it does, that's incidental. It's solving their issue, their need. So hypothetically, if somebody obtained a 95-year lease on a couple of massive buildings in New York City that required an incredible level of upkeep, and we're going to very slowly return the profit, probably not in that person's lifetime. It would have been so expensive that, it was going to take a long time to get your ROI. Mm-hmm. And by the time your money was really coming in right from the purchase of that lease, the buildings were going to need an unbelievable level of renovation, which was going to be incredibly costly and greatly set back the timeline at which you recoup your expenses and begin getting your ROI. Mm-hmm. What one could hypothetically do is buy some very expensive insurance policies on those buildings and then arrange to have them destroyed.
Yep.
in a way that would be perceived as clearly catastrophic and outside of your ability to control, but also you could minimize the damage by being sure that the buildings fell in on themselves instead of, I'm just saying hypothetically, you could.
Could.
And then if you arrange to have them fall as the result of two separate terrorist acts when acts of terrorism were specifically covered in your $2.4 billion insurance policy, mm-hmm. and you could arrange to have them destroyed in two separate acts of terrorism on the same day, meaning you could try to apply for two separate insurance payouts, two separate events, and wind up in a lawsuit with the insurance company and settle for $1.5 billion more than you would have gotten out of one settlement. Hypothetically, you might walk away with $5.5 billion and forget to come into work on that day. Could happen.
Could. For the record.
For the record. I'm using that example because I don't know what happened there, that hypothetical example.
Yeah.
But the question is, if that were to happen, you would need a lot of cooperation from a lot of different players to make that happen and not wind up in prison for the rest of your life or lynched publicly. how would you get those players on board? Well, there might be some other players who could use a good crisis themselves to get some measures passed that they've been having a really hard time selling the American public on. In the last, let's just say that hypothetically in the decade or so leading up to that, the world had radically, dramatically changed so that at that point, every American had at least one computer in their home, maybe one that they carry with them. Every member of the family carried a phone in their pocket, which was constantly relaying extremely useful data about those people and their movements. And from a governmental point of view, a wealth of useful intelligence being transmitted between radio towers and phone lines through data connections in every American home, every American car, every office. And from a commercial perspective, mind-numbing wealth of information that people always kept locked away in file cabinets and safety deposit boxes.
Talk about it.
Before that, paper copies only. And you just didn't have access to that. You didn't know much about the spending habits of people in any given area. There were already companies who specialized in doing the best they could to track that kind of stuff at the cash register and sell that data to big corporations that were looking for how to market what in which areas and at what price point. And all of that was already big business for decades. But it was very limited data, very small what's the word I'm looking for? Data sets, very small groups of people that they could examine. And this was everybody. All the information about everybody was suddenly right there, whistling past your ear while you walk down the street. You just can't reach out and grab it. Not because you don't know how, by the way.
Yep.
But because that's not legal, and so you can't act on it without incriminating yourself.
Yep. So how could we build a bridge to that information readily available?
But we've already lobbed that softball out to the American public, and they are not having it.
Yeah.
These are people, you got to remember, these are people who were raised, think about the generation that was, old enough to be successful and involved in business and all that at that time. They, if you walked up to them at church and said, "How are you doing?" they could be on the edge of suicide, and they would say, "Bless God, blessed and highly favored, too blessed to be stressed, can't complain, because if I did, nobody would listen." They were taught your business is your business. Don't go spilling the tea out in public all the time. So how do you talk these people into just giving you all of that? And so you have this hypothetical billionaire that has this hypothetical multi-billion-dollar challenge / opportunity on his hands with these buildings he's bought. And you have this huge market of massive corporations that are salivating at the thought of access to this information that the American public are guarding so closely. And you have a government that is losing its ever-loving mind because it is not allowed to at least admit that it has accessed any of this wealth of information that can tell them everything they need to know about the movements of every demographic, and they can snag all kinds of chatter that will help them position themselves defensively, offensively,
All of the above.
all of the above.
Yeah.
And suddenly you have a lot of people with aligned interests that all vacation in the same place in the Hamptons and go to the same clubs and attend the same galas and go to the same invitational only meetings. And hypothetically, you could hatch a plan that if we resolve this billionaire's problem in the right way, we can spark a war that has no perceivable end in sight, because for the first time in human history, it'll be a war with an enemy that has no flag, has no, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not readily identified.
No, we can, for as long as we need to, we can chase them through caves and, and we can claim they're in any country we want, and we can nationalize, we can what's the word I'm looking for? We can take possession of any mineral,
Yeah. Every resource.
as much black gold as we want to, all in the name of this war, which incidentally is going to scare the hell out of the American public.
Yeah.
Which will get them to sign up to die in our war, and they will look the other way while we pass, let's just call it the Patriot Act, hypothetically, where we take control of all of the information they were so sure they were never going to give us, but now they're scared and angry.
They're going to beg us to do this.
And we'll just tell them, trust us, when we're done with this war, we'll give it back.
Yeah.
Just trust us. But we got to get this done right now. And then we already know they'll forget. They won't actually care a couple years down the road. So once it's done, we know that. They know that too, but they're going to pretend they don't because they're scared right now. Yeah. And we can get these corporations the information they've been salivating about, and then of course we get all that money back in 1,000 ways, from taxes to donations to trips to private islands to, hypothetically speaking, there's a lot of wins in that scenario for a few people. So what you have done now is, where there used to be a thesis, you've put a crisis. And where there used to be an antithesis, you've put a reaction, the reaction of the public. But what's beautiful about this is you started from the solution you needed to give. This is what we need. We need this set of circumstances that will allow this set of, we need this set of solutions. These buildings, these hypothetical buildings have to come down so that we can, enact all these things we just described. And in order to get there, we need a crisis that we can predict what reactions we'll get, so that we can prepare for a synthesis. So where there was a thesis, there's an antithesis. There's a crisis. Where there was an antithesis, there's a reaction. And now where there was a synthesis, there's going to be a solution. And so we have now, it's not perfect. That's what people need to understand. When you look at this stuff, you need to understand they're not gods. So stuff happens that they weren't foreseeing. And sometimes somebody stabs somebody in the back and somebody gets cut out of the deal. And sometimes, you know, the American public or the whatever public reacts in somewhat unpredictable ways. But for the most part, they can run the scenarios. They can use their computer models to run the
simulations.
Thank you. And they can pretty much be prepared for the vast majority of eventualities, and understand that through these different mechanisms, we'll be able to respond to the reactions, and always keeping clear in our minds the solution that we're moving everybody toward.
Yes.
So, hypothetically speaking, you could design the perfect crisis. Like, let's not just, you know, in 1993, we tried, hypothetically, a bombing. Or let's say that 1993 bombing might have been actual terrorism.
Yeah.
Because that exists. So that could be one of those things that's where you have to be careful of your, like, tinfoil hat mentality.
Right.
What if that just happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
But now that kind of presents an opportunity, because actually there's some precedent that people from this particular mentality and worldview
operate like
might target this. Yeah. But what if instead of a bombing, which is impactful in its own way, but what if the whole world watched passenger jets flown by people of this persuasion?
Yeah.
Into the, what if we could spark that level of outrage coupled with fear? The idea that I have to wonder when I get on a commercial flight, that sparked a kind of primordial fear in us.
Absolutely.
So what you have to realize is, using what we call the Hegelian dialectic as a means of mass thought control and behavior control involves designing the most brilliantly contrived crises you can imagine. That, because human nature is as predictable as it is, are really only going to produce a limited kind of responses from people, all of which can be managed to produce this end result that we're looking for. And it doesn't always work perfectly, and it doesn't always go exactly as planned, but by and large, this has become an incredibly successful method. And basically, the way you could think about it is, Machiavelli taught the powerful how to remain powerful and be effective.
Yes.
Saul Alinsky, on the other hand, Rules for Radicals, taught the underdog how to turn the tables. And Machiavelli never suggested the use of the Hegelian dialectic, but the Hegelian dialectic has been perverted by the unseen hand, by the influential groups in our world, in a very Machiavellian way. It really is the way Machiavelli would think about how to apply that blueprint. You know what I mean? Saul Alinsky, on the other hand, went about it a little bit differently, but just a quick example is, remember when we were reading Rules for Radicals and he was saying that, what's the word? I just had it a second ago. Ridicule. That ridicule is an incredibly powerful tool.
Yes.
Because there's basically no response to ridicule.
No.
That's an example of ways in which, and it's not even the best example, but Saul Alinsky was very good at saying, look, if you're the underdog and you need to shift events, let's say you're a Marxist in a capitalist society and you need to shift public opinion, you can use these tools to create a crisis, and then when those in power respond to that crisis, you can come forward with a mechanism that the public is going to much prefer to the way those in power are dealing with it. MLK kind of used some of and his movement kind of used some of this. You can force the hand of the Machiavellian overlords to yield to an agenda they don't want to acknowledge, because you have generated a crisis that is so overwhelmingly upsetting to the public that your solution becomes the only viable out for those in power.
Yeah.
So they will beat a tactical retreat. They will give you your civil rights, but they will enact all kinds of laws in the fallback, and using the prison system and whatever. They'll have fallback positions, but it is a way to push the ball down the field if you're the underdog. But when we talked about the other hypothetical, we're talking about the Machiavellian side of it, how they would go about those with that level of influence. So it's an important thing to know, because once you understand how that mechanism works, you will begin to observe it in action more often than you expect to. You will begin to realize most of the time it's going to be from the Machiavellian side, but sometimes it will be that underdog thing.
Yeah.
And you'll realize somebody smart with a bunch of pull and probably a bunch of money is that dog is hunting because they trained it. Mm-hmm. There's a reason that this is developing this way, and we're probably in this tension, this thesis, antithesis, synthesis. We're probably in this crisis, reaction, response, or crisis, reaction, solution scenario.
Yeah.
And that's the tension of what's happening in our culture, and that's what's shaping public thought.
I love it. That's going to give me a lot to think about. And how we intentionally start to be Antikemi to whatever we're being presented with. Because like we discussed today, like by the time the information is presented to you, it's already working against you, whether you know it or not.
There it is.
And you having the wherewithal to be able to receive, that information, hold it in tension, and not allow it to completely reroute every path toward righteousness just because the pitch sounded really good and I did my research.
Yep.
And how you mentioned before, a lot of times what we think is compromise is really subterfuge. It's deception wrapped up in pretty packaging. That's all it is. Yeah, man, we gotta put a pin in that because that's so good.
Right before you do, tie it back to the beginning conversation.
Yeah.
Or I can, whatever. I
No,
just
go
feel
ahead,
like
go
I've
ahead.
talked a lot.
No, no, go ahead.
This conversation tonight definitely took a turn.
Yeah.
But it is not a blind turn. Mm-hmm. It is two halves of a whole that we need at this time. So we opened up with the meditation on meditation, on his word in his presence, the idea of overload and stopping and digesting and ruminating and realizing, being better at realizing when confusion and indecision and fear are knocking on the door, and realizing that's no different than when you're eating a bowl of ice cream and you realize your stomach is starting to hurt. And if you're a grown up, you know I should quit now and digest what I've taken in, right? And so it's very much the same. It's like, or even healthy food, there just hits a point where you realize, oh, if I want to be able to get the benefit of this, it's time to put the fork down now and, go rest or take a walk or whatever, rest and digest. And so we talked about that when after 40 days and 40 nights of rain, you got to know, like, we got to let the water recede now and distill and find that solid ground again. Well, the way that applies to me, to the second half of this conversation, is this. I see it in myself and I see it all around me. When you start to, because basically what we did in the second half, hopefully, is put somebody on game a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do that. We try to let you know, like, hey, this is kind of how the players play. And the reason they play in your face is because not everybody is super strong on pattern recognition. And so what you need to understand is that things don't happen the same way that many times in a row on accident. So it tells you somebody somewhere is engineering something, right? And so when you get put on game like that, or if you are really good at pattern recognition and you've always kind of seen it, what it tends to do to most of us is send us spinning off trying to get to the bottom of every one of these big issues that we're talking about. The power, one of the great powers to me of a psyop, a psychological operation, is everybody gets sucked into it. And that goes back to John St. Julian's entertainment value. Everybody gets sucked in. We're all thinking about it. We're all talking about it. We're all obsessing about it. We've all got opinions. We've divided into camps, right?
Yes.
And that makes it very easy for those who are manipulating the course of events to keep everybody moving the same direction, because we may all be in different rooms, but we're in the same building. The situation is controlled. Some of us may call shotgun and some of us may be riding in the hatchback, but we're all in the car.
all going the same place.
So, to that point, that is a mistake. Once you see the unseen hand, once you see the man behind the curtain, there's little to be gained by obsessively tracing the strings attached to his fingers and seeing which one is attached to which marionette. There's not, first of all, by design, that is such a jumbled mess that it's a fool's errand to try to get to the bottom of who's pulling what string for what reason. You can tell me any theory you want, and I can give you 100 reasons why it fails on closer analysis, and it may even be right. But with the information we have, I can call your information into question constantly, right? So trying to untangle what are we looking at, that's just continuing to circle the same drain that everybody else is. So once you understand something like this about how those with power and influence move, the real benefit of that is not so that next time there's a pandemic or next time that you can be one of the ones that winds up sounding smart and being vindicated because you were calling BS from the beginning, right?
Right.
That didn't really help anybody for the most part. Can help you to some extent to not get sucked in to certain things, but obsessing about who's doing what, why, where, that's not really where the solution is. The solution is understanding the principle you brought forth a minute ago. Once it has been served to your attention, you need to understand that 9 times out of 10 at least, it's a part of this game that they're playing because they're playing all the time.
Yep.
It's always a thing. So once it has been served to your attention and you have identified that that's part of whatever they're doing, the most powerful thing is usually to look away and recenter and go back to what is my purpose, what am I called to be doing. Yes, you may have to choose your response to some of these things in terms of how you posture yourself toward them. But jumping into the fray of the public debate and all that is rarely going to be useful.
Right.
The key issue is seeing that hand at work, because I think something that people don't think about all the time is there's only a few people that actually own 90% of the news agencies in the world. Right? And it's either them or the people that go to the same dinner parties as them who own all the social media. So anything that gets shoved into your consciousness from entertainment, news, social media, any of that stuff is almost certainly connected to this game we're describing or other versions of the same kind of thing. And so once it's shoved in your face in any of these arenas, what you need to realize is what's actually being asked of you is that you give your attention, your energy, and your emotional capital to this, and to make the conscious decision, no, I'm going to go back. I might do that for a few minutes, but I'm not going to get too sucked into entertainment. I'm going to go back and I'm going to ruminate on the things of God until I am once again safe in his presence, free from fear because his love is operating through my awareness again,
Yes.
and
Yes.
clear on my purpose. If we can learn to do that, to go back to what we are called to withdraw as Jesus often did, to circle up with those we're called to do this with. If we can build this skill of being aware without being obsessed, of being hip to what they're doing without being vested in the drama of it, and come back to who he is and who we are in him, what we are called to, we can begin to preserve the Antikemi presence of the kingdom of heaven in the middle of all that noise, because we're just like the psalmist. I will rise early and wake the dawn.
Yeah.
I will get up at midnight and praise you. I will lie on my bed and meditate on your precepts. I will both lie down and sleep and rest, and I will renew my strength like the eagles, and I will live and not die, but live and declare the praises of him. And we can slip through the crowd because our hour has not yet come. We can evade the onslaught because he hasn't allowed us yet to finish our course. We're not hanging on the cross. We're carrying it.
That's right.
And so the Antikemi lesson to me of this discussion tonight is understanding how the kingdom of darkness operates is not an invitation to become obsessed with ruminating on that, digesting that. If you are what you eat, chewing on that cud, it's a reminder that as soon as the pattern recognition sets in, and now that we know what it is, we go, oh, yeah, that's being served. If all of these very few people control all of the information that gets to me, by the time it gets to me, if they didn't want me to see it, it would be suppressed.
Exactly.
So by the time it is served to me, it might be helpful to look at it for a minute to see where it looks like it fits, so we can know how people around us are being manipulated. But basically, it's enough to identify, okay, that seems like it's connected to that.
Yeah.
Now back to my pasture. He prepares a table for me in the presence of mine enemies.
Exactly.
Because you can't eat from the table of God and the table of demons at the same time.
Can't.
So
You can't.
that's why, to me, this conversation turned into two halves of the same whole.
No, it absolutely did. Go back, rewind it, listen again. I promise you, there is something there that is going to help you. I love it. I love it. Until next time,
Live Antikemi.
let's go.
We love you.